Okay, so someone asked about my toy collection, and my toy collection is so enormous that I could never fit it into one video. So I'm going to chip it off piece by piece and show you the entire Yak Bak collection that I have. And I say entire because I have every single model of Yak Bak that ever came out. Now, for those kids out there that don't know what a Yak Bak is, it was a device that came out in the early to mid 90s, 1994 to be exact, and you could press say on here and hold it, and you could record whatever you wanted to say into the speaker there, and then you could play it back. There's a total of 21 different variations of the Yak Bak that came out. And it all started in 1994, and they ended with Yes Entertainment going out of business by 1999, 2000, somewhere around there. So we're starting with the very first edition of the Yak Bak that came out in 1994. And as you can see on the back, you can record up to 6 seconds and play it back. And then in 1995, they had the Yak Bak 2. And the difference was that there was a little lock feature. So if you saved something that was really awesome, like if you had a really cool fart that you didn't want re-recorded, you would save it. So anybody that would press say on there and try to record over it, they couldn't because you had the lock function on it. And then the other addition was the warp tool, where you could warp and pitch your voice high or pitch your voice low in the recording. There you go there. Also in 1995, they had the Yak Bak SFX. This version had the warp tool along with 6 buttons that would play a different sound effect. Now I do have to say that the Yak Bak came in many different colors and whatever. I don't have every single color of every variation, but I do have every variant. So let's just get that out of the way. So by 1996, as Yes Entertainment realized that the Yak Bak was highly successful, they already thought, oh, we put out a Yak Bak and a Yak Bak 2. What else can we do? They just started shelling out all these different variations, and from here on out, they didn't want to just label a Yak Bak 3, a Yak Bak 4. So they started naming the different variations instead. So this is a rebranding of the Yak Bak 2, which they call this the Yak Bak Warper. So it's the exact same thing, just a different name, and this came out in 1996. Also in 96, they had the Yak Bak backwards, where you could record whatever you wanted to say and then play it back backwards if you wanted to. You could say things that were spelled out backwards and play it backwards, and it would sound like you said it forward. Make sense? Kind of? Okay, so there you go, Yak Bak backwards. Also in 1996, ooh, it was the haunted version of the Yak Bak SFX, which the only difference was that there were 6 different sound effects that played spooky sounds. There you go. And then, like I said, how they changed the Yak Bak 2 to the Yak Bak Warper, they also changed the Yak Bak 1, the original, to now the Yak Bak Classic. And this one came out in 1996. So, same thing, different name. And all I gotta say is, Yak Baks were booming in 96. They put out all kinds of things, such as this. This is Yak Time, which was a Yak Bak in watch form. And you could also take it off and use it as a key ring as well. And the cool thing about this is you could record something and set it to a certain time to go off as an alarm, which was pretty neat. And there's 4 different styles of Yak Time there. Yep, here is the Yak Guard, where there was no combination to it, there was no lock to it. You could just simply take this plastic thing, snap it onto whatever you wanted to guard, and anytime someone would pull on it and unlock it, whatever you recorded would go off as an alarm. And how you would record something would be pressing the say button on the back and saying whatever. So that's the Yak Guard. Kind of a useless thing. Yes Entertainment was trying to milk the Yak Bak for all it was worth. So yes, they started putting it in pen form as well. So this is a Yak Right SFX. That's what they started calling the Yak Baks in pen form, Yak Rights. So this had 4 different sound effects, as you can see the buttons there. And there's the back of it. And of course, here is the Yak Backwards, where you could play things backwards, whatever you said. And this one's kind of weird. It came in a non-plastic kind of packaging, and it's the Yak Bak 2 pen. And you know, the whole rebranding like we talked about, the Yak Bak 2 pen turned into the Yak Bak Warper pen. So, same thing, different packaging, just like the originals. And okay, 1997 comes, and they pull out all the stops and bring you Yak Maniac. This thing had so many different functions and things to do. So as you see there, you can make yourself sound stuttering, echo, you could warble your recordings. There's all different variations and sound effects that you could hit there. I mean, this thing had it all. So there's the back of it. All right, cool. This is probably the wildest and most high-tech Yak Bak that I've ever seen. This thing could sense your hand. You could just put your hand over it and it would manipulate whatever recording you had playing. It's very wild. Here's the buttons for the sound effects. And this dial, you would turn it to warp your voice high or low, whatever. So yeah, there you go, the Yak Bender. The Yak Ball. This would be something you would record, like, you know, just saying to your friend, F you, and then throw it to them. And once they'd catch it, like, it would trigger the recording to go off. So whatever you said, you threw it to your friend would hear it once they catch it. Kind of a cool thing. We're still in 1997, and we've got the Yak Wacky, which is kind of a no-frills version of the Yak Bender. It basically just has the record, play function, and your hand motion function there where you could warp your voice up or down. And that is the Yak Wacky. And the final thing in 1997, we have the Miss Yak, which is basically a girl version of a Yak Bak SFX, because the only difference was the sound effects were more tuned for girls more than boys. 1998 rolls around, and Yes Entertainment had seen better days. The Yak Bak really wasn't as popular anymore, but they wanted to stay afloat, and they came out with the Yak Live. 8 different people that you could choose from that would come up on the screen. Whatever you said, the animations of these people would mouth whatever you said and record it into the thing. You could also warp your voice, and there was sound effects on this thing too. So then in 1999, as the millennium was coming to, Yak Bak repurposed the Yak Bak and the Yak Bak Classic to be the Yak Bak 2K, a no-frills new version of the Yak Bak to conveniently fit into the contours of your hand. You could say and play, and that is it, the Yak Bak 2K. Yes Entertainment got some licensing deal with Looney Tunes, and they started to incorporate Looney Tunes sound effects with a Yak Bak SFX. This also came out in 1999, and this was the last variation of the Yak Bak ever. I mean, you could also just call this the last version too, but these both came out in 1999, and that is it. The Yak Bak was a big, major thing in the 90s, and it went out in perfect timing and never saw the light of day after 1999. So there you go. That is the Yak Bak.